Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Welcome back to Ask Rob and Rob. It's Tuesday. We are here once again to answer 2 of your questions. We've got some really good ones coming up, but I'm sure you've got a good one of your own. So, Rob, a quick reminder, please, of how you send your question in.
Oh, this could not be simpler. You just go to propertyhub.net/ask. propertyhub.net/ask. There, you can leave us a voicemail. You can find the number to leave us an answer phone message, or you can write to us and possibly see your question in the Sunday Times. We do not mind what method you prefer, but on this show, it helps if it's audio. But luckily, that's exactly what Paul's done.
Hi, Rob and Rob. It's Paul here, a relatively new listener to the podcast, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far, and I thought I'd come and ask you a question. My question for you guys is, so my situation, I have £50,000 saved up, ready for my first purchase. This excludes an emergency fund, so this 50k is solely for purchasing. Looking at the details, I'm going to set up a limited company, and I'm looking in the West Midlands nearby where I am. I know in previous podcasts you've recommended looking further afield, but for me, I feel like the house prices are obtainable, and also being close to deal with refurb and whatnot would be easier, but I appreciate that may not be the best solution, and maybe I need to open my eyes up to other regions. So I've been looking at together flats and houses, and it just seems the service charges in the areas I'm looking on the flats seem outrageously high, and I'm worried about the fact that they increase and there will be no end limit, and I will constantly lose more and more money out of that flat. So I'm thinking to prefer maybe a smaller house. But if you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you use the full 50k for one place, like a flat or a house? Or would you try maybe looking in the cheaper area nearby and then splitting it in half and try and get 2 flats or houses? Thank you, and I look forward to hearing your responses.
Paul, thank you for your question. There's a few bits in here, so let's tackle it. So, first of all, the area to target. Yes, we do say be open to investing in the best areas, and they may be away from where you live. But being in the West Midlands, that's an area we like. So it may work where you are. So you don't necessarily need to go further afield. At the moment, it would be for people who live overseas, obviously, they'd need to, or people in the southeast or southwest. They would probably be better off looking further afield at the moment, or people in Scotland. Where you are, there's a chance you can put a good deal together. Now, just because you're in a good area doesn't mean you're automatically going to do a good deal. Good deals can be done in not so good areas, and bad deals can be done in great areas. So it doesn't excuse you from doing all the research and putting all the effort in, but the fact you've asked this question gives me encouragement that you will go through that process. So by all means, if you see a deal elsewhere outside your area that you really like and you want to go for, then crack on, but have comfort that the area you live in could be very good as well. Now let's look at apartments versus houses. We've podcast on this subject more than once. It's a debate that will probably never end, but hey, that's great for content. So let me give you a very quick overview of why you should be open to both. Rob and I have invested in both in the past, and there's a good reason for it. The benefit of a flat is that if you have a good management company in, then they will look after the building for you. It's just less headache. A good management company is worth their weight in gold. That's not the management of your individual property, it's the management of the building, just to be clear. And that's where your service charges come in. So they will do all the cleaning, they will do all the maintenance. If there are any facilities, they will be charged through those service charges. There is a value to them. Don't just see them as a cost. And what we see is that the gross yields on flats apartments are higher than the gross yields normally on houses. And then once you take into account the service charges, they are roughly the same. Now, of course, it depends on the area and there are variances to that, but that's a general rule. So it's normally costed in, and you should look at it as just an extra number you need to work into your cash flows, but do go through that process and compare the two. Compare the net number you end up with a house and compare the net number you end up with an apartment. And I wouldn't be surprised when you go through that process that the net number you end up with is roughly the same, even though you're accounting for an extra cost when looking at the apartments. Remember, with houses, you have to do all that maintenance yourself and you have to sort it all out yourself, which isn't, again, a reason not to do it. It's just make sure you take that into account. And you may, in your budget, want to put a little bit more of contingency for that house because of that reason. So what I want to get across to you and to anybody else listening is be open-minded. Go for the best deal, whether the best deal is an apartment or a house. And sometimes you don't have a choice because you don't see many houses in city centres and you don't see many flats in the middle of the countryside. So the market sometimes will dictate to you as well. Manchester city centre is a brilliant place to invest, like Leeds and Birmingham. But you are going to be buying an apartment if you want exposure to those areas because there are next to no houses available because it is a city centre. So there's a lot there to digest, Paul, but I hope it's useful. I hope it's useful to everybody else listening as well. And it gives you maybe a different perspective on your approach to property investment.
Okay, let's hear our next question now from Simona.
Hi, Rob and Rob. This is Simona from London. I've been listening now to your podcast for about 2 years and it helped me greatly on my property journey. So thank you from my side. So we are in the process of buying a 2-bed flat in Manchester city centre. During the conveyancing process, it turns out that the service charge increased significantly year on year. Also, the service charge is currently in a £2,000 deficit and there is no reserve fund available. I've sent these questions all back to the seller solicitor, but they're just really slow in responding to my inquiries. So I just wanted to get your opinion. Is this a red flag to you or is this something that you have ever come across before? To me, it just sounds like really bad financial management from the management company. Not sure this is something I want to get close to. So yeah, really appreciate your opinion and big thank you.
Simona, slow solicitor, are you sure? Never heard of that before. No, seriously, thank you for your question. And you are right to be cautious about this because you don't want to be buying into a problem. So just how red are those flags? Well, if you look at the specifics you mentioned, you said that the service charge increased significantly last year. That's pretty normal. Service charges pretty much across the board have increased a lot over the last couple of years because the cost of providing services has gone up so much. Energy, of course, is the big one, but the price of everything has gone up. So naturally, service charges have followed. If you've got buildings that have fire safety issues, then of course, there's going to be additional costs there. But even without that, service charges have gone up. That's not in itself an argument against flats because the cost of making repairs to your house and providing services there would have gone up as well. The other thing you mentioned is a £2,000 deficit. And what I assume you mean there is that the current seller is £2,000 behind because a £2,000 deficit at the level of a whole development is not much at all. So if that is the case, if that's what you mean, then that is something that you would need to sort out as part of the transaction. So your solicitor would either insist on that being brought up to date by the time you complete, or you would hold back enough from the completion funds that you would be able to clear that deficit yourself at the point of taking the property on. So in themselves, those two specific things you've mentioned aren't necessarily deal breakers, but that's not to say that there aren't issues in there that we're unaware of. And like I said, it is always best to be cautious. So slow though your solicitor is, I would definitely grill them. Ask them all these questions. What you can also do for a more modern twist is if you've got all the leasehold documentation, pop it into ChatGPT, ask it for an analysis, and ask it to give you a list of questions that you should be asking your solicitor. And hopefully by taking that kind of approach, you're not going to rush in and get involved in a situation that you'd really rather not. It doesn't sound like you are going to do that because you're asking all the right questions now, but you're also not going to be overly cautious and you'll be able to get to a point where either there's too much risk and you walk away, or you get comfortable that you've controlled the risk and you can go ahead with confidence. So Simona, hope that helps. Thank you for your question. And to you, thank you for listening. Really appreciate you being here and we'll see you back here on Thursday for the Property Podcast. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.